Dimple ma'am, please click on the mute all, so there will be no disturbance.
Fine. Is it okay now?
Yeah, ma'am. All good.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Myself, Dr. Dimple Modi. I'm neurophysiotherapist and associated with Global Association of Physiotherapy as a Vice President, Maharashtra Wing. Today's topic of our webinar is knee biomechanics. So it's very interesting, but you have to be very concentrated on this topic because each thing is linked with one another. So if you miss one thing, you will not be able to understand the other thing. So please concentrate on the lecture. So shall we start with the knee joint biomechanics? Everybody? So what is knee? Introduction. Participating bones. What are bones related in the knee joint complex? One is the femur, tibia, and the patella. The knee complex is composed of tibiofemoral joint and the patellofemoral joint. Tibiofemoral and the knee joint is a hinge joint, which is a freely moving joint in which the bones are so articulated as to allow extensive movement in one plane. So there are gliding movements. In knee joint, there are 6 degrees of freedom, 3 rotations and 3 translations. Okay, so the knee joint works in conjunction with the hip and the ankle joint. It is also responsible for the moving and supporting. Knee joint has the stability function also and the mobility function also, so which is reflected in its structure and function also. As I said, it is composed of 2 articulations. One is the tibiofemoral joint and another one is the patellofemoral
Dimple
joint.
ma'am.
Yes.
Dimple ma'am, just a second. There is some disturbance. Can you just turn me as the host? So I'll just adjust all this. Just turn me into the host, so you can go with the webinar, and I'll manage all this.
Fine. Shall I start?
Dimple ma'am, make me the host, so I'll just mute everyone, and you can go on with the seminar.
After that, I'll not be able to share my screen then.
You will be able to, ma'am. If it is not possible, you can continue, not an issue.
So there are 6 degrees of freedom, 3 rotations and the 3 translations. So where the knee joint works in conjunction with the hip joint also and the ankle joint also. It is responsible for the moving and the supporting function. Gives stability as well as mobility, which is reflected in its structure and function. There are 2 distinct articulations which happens in the knee joint. One is the tibiofemoral joint and the patellofemoral joint, which is enclosed in a single capsule. What is tibiofemoral joint? When the articulation occurs between the distal femur and the proximal tibia, that forms a tibiofemoral joint. And another one is the patellofemoral joints, when the articulation occurs in the posterior patella and the femur. So that is the patellofemoral joint. One thing I would like to add on this, the superior tibiofibular joint does not come in the knee joint complex because it is not enclosed in the knee joint capsule.
Manisha ma'am, Dimple ma'am, just a minute. Manisha ma'am, please mute yourself. Yeah, Dimple ma'am, carry on.
So one thing I would like to add on this, the superior tibiofibular joint does not come under the knee joint complex. Okay, only the tibiofemoral and the patellofemoral joint comes under the knee joint complex. Why the tibiofemoral joint doesn't come under the knee joint complex? It's because it is not enclosed in the knee joint capsule. So it is more functionally related to the ankle joint. Okay, so there are, as I said, there are two main joints which are in the knee joint complex. Now I would like to explain you the tibiofemoral joint is the
तो मैं पराठा मंगा लूं भाई सरकारी ले आओ के तो नाश्ता पानी मिला सबका
tibiofemoral joint is the double condylite joint. Okay, so I can explain you the what are the planes and axis that occurs in the knee joint complex. So what three movements occurs? The flexion and extension, the medial and lateral rotation, and the abduction and adduction. The flexion and extension occurs in the sagittal plane and the coronal axis. The coronal axis pass through the epicondyles of the femur. Okay, so next movement is the medial and lateral rotation. It occurs in the transverse plane, longitudinal axis, which occurs at the lateral side of the medial tibial condyle. Okay, if this is a femur, the medial tibial condyle, there occurs the medial and lateral rotation in the transverse plane. Third movement is the abduction and adduction, which occurs in the frontal plane. Okay, frontal plane, and the axis is the anterior posterior axis. Fine. So this, with this way I complete the axis and the movement which occurs in the knee joint. Now okay, well, the rotations I explained you. Flexion and extension, varus and valgus movement, how much degree it occurs, internal and external rotation, the translation movements in the anterior posterior, the compression and the distraction, and the medial and lateral. Okay, so these are the degrees of movement and how much of the translations occurs at the knee joint when there is a movement. So this I already explained you. Double condyle knee joint is also referred as the medial and lateral compartments of the knee. Okay, with 3 degrees of angular motion. The flexion and extension occurs in the sagittal plane. Axis is the coronal axis. The medial and lateral rotation occurs in the transverse plane, longitudinal axis, and the abduction and adduction, which occurs in the frontal plane, anterior posterior axis. So now we'll discuss what femur, the femur articulating surface. Okay, so the proximal articular surface of the knee joint is composed of the large medial and the lateral condyles of the distal femur. Okay, it is the proximal articular surface. As the we can see the shaft of the femur is little oblique. So the femoral condyles do not lie immediately below above the femoral head. When you see the femoral head and the femoral condyle, it is little in oblique direction. Okay, so the condyles are not in the straight line with the femoral head, but it is slightly medial. Okay, so what happens because of this obliquity, the lateral condyle comes in line with the shaft of the femur. Then the medial condyle doesn't come, but the lateral condyle comes in line with the femoral head. So, so when we see the X-rays, we feel by imaging we see that the medial condyle extends distally, little bit distally. Okay, and the lateral femoral condyle is shifted little bit anteriorly with respect to the medial femoral condyle, and the articular surface of the lateral femoral condyle is shorter as compared to the articular surface of the medial condyle. Okay, these things you understood. So understood how the structure it is, the obliquity, how the articular surface is. The lateral condyle is shifted anteriorly. The articular surface of the lateral femoral condyle is shorter. Okay, the third thing is the lateral condyles comes in line with the femoral head. Okay, so now the two condyles are separated inferiorly by the intercondylar notch. Okay, the lateral condyle and the medial condyle is separated inferiorly by the intercondylar notch, which is joined anteriorly with a asymmetrical shallow groove, which is called as the patellar groove, or the surface that engages patella during flexion. Okay, so that groove helps in the that engage the patella during flexion movement. Okay, so this is in concise. I can just revise it. Is femur is proximal articular surface of the knee joint with larger medial and lateral condyles. Because of the obliquity of the shaft, the femoral condyles do not lie immediately below the femoral head, but are slightly medial to it. The medial condyle extend further distally, so that despite the angulation of the femur shaft, the distal end of the femur remains essentially horizontal. Okay, this is the femur's articulating surface. In sagittal plane, the condyles have a convex shape. In frontal plane, slight convexity in the lateral femoral condyle, which is shifted anteriorly in relation to the medial articular surface. Inferiorly, the lateral condyle appears to be longer. Okay, the two condyles are separated by the intercondylar notch. Anteriorly by an asymmetrical shallow groove, which is called as the patellar groove or the surface. Fine. You can see in the picture the medial femoral condyle and the lateral femoral condyle, the intercondylar fossa. Okay. Now we come to the tibial articulating surface. What is the tibial articulating surface? How it is? Okay. So the distal articular surface of the knee joint, the distal, now femur upside and the tibia downside, the distal articular surface of the knee joint are asymmetrical. So asymmetrical, it forms the medial tibial condyles and the lateral tibial condyles. The medial tibial condyle is longer in AP direction than the lateral tibial condyle. The lateral tibial condyle is little bit thicker than the articular surface of the medial tibial condyle. The tibial plateau is larger than the shaft, which overhangs posteriorly. When you see the tibial plateau, when the shaft is little bit posterior side, it's not in straight line. This is the tibia, so the shaft is little bit posteriorly. There is a slight, you can see a curve, it is little posteriorly. So the tibial slope is approximately about 7 degree to 10 degree. And the medial tibial condyle and the lateral tibial condyle is separated by the intercondylar tubercles. Okay. The first one was what we see in the femur, it was the intercondylar notch, and in tibia it is the intercondylar tubercles. During extension movement, the intercondylar tubercles lodged with the intercondylar notch. Okay, it gets fixed. The tibial plateaus are flat with slight convexity, which suggests that the tibial plateaus does not match with the femoral condyle. Okay, so there is little irregularity in the tibial condyles and the femoral condyles. So because of the lack of this stability, because there is no proper, the articulator surface is not that proper, so we need additional support. That support is given by the menisci, which increases the knee joint congruency. It helps in the stability function also, weight bearing also. So it gives an overall effect in the movement. Okay, so this we end with the tibial articulating surface. Fine. The asymmetrical medial and lateral tibial condyles constitute the distal articular surface of the knee joint. Medial tibial plateau is longer in AP direction than the lateral. The lateral tibial articulated cartilage is thicker than the medial side. Tibial plateau slopes posteriorly approximately to 7 to 10 degree. Medial and tibial condyles are separated by two bony spines, which is called as the intercondylar tubercles. So during extension, it gets lodged. Okay, and because of the lack of the joint stability, accessory joint structures, which are the menisci, that increases the joint congruency. Okay, this is the X-ray picture. Okay, so now we come to menisci. Okay, so why menisci are important? As I already told you, why menisci is important, because of it increases the joint congruency. That's why the menisci gives an additional support to the joint. Okay, so the tibiofemoral congruence the tibiofemoral congruence is improved by the medial and lateral menisci, okay, which forms a concavities in the femoral condyles. In that it sits, okay, because of the menisci, the femoral condyle is able to sit on the tibial condyles, which increases the joint congruency. It increases weight bearing. It helps in weight bearing also, and this is a menisci are the shock absorbers, okay. So it helps in the when you jump or run or do jogging, it acts as a shock absorber also. So the joint are not in directly, the bones are not in direct contact with each other. So what are menisci? It is a fibrocartilaginous disc with a semicircular shape. The medial menisci is C-shaped, while the lateral menisci covers almost 4/5 of the circle. So lying within the tibiofemoral joint, the menisci are located on the top of the tibial condyles, which covers 2/3 of the tibial articulating surface of the tibia. Okay, so both menisci open at the intercondylar tubercles. If this is a tibia, the menisci opens at the intercondylar tubercles, which is thick peripherically. Peripherally, the menisci are thick, and in center it is thin. The lateral menisci covers the larger portion, while the smaller medial meniscus covers the have a smaller portion of the meniscal area. As a result of the large exposed surface, because the medial meniscus is not covered with, it is only it's C-shaped, so it doesn't covers the whole part. So there are a lot of enormous compressive forces which occurs at the medial condyle during daily activities. So you can understand what menisci plays, how menisci plays a major role in the all the jerky and the fast movements, and it also helps in the protection of the joint also. Okay, both menisci are open towards the intercondylar area, thick peripherally, thin centrally. Okay, menisci plays it helps in reducing the friction between the joint segment and serve as a shock absorber. So now I would like to tell you the attachments, how menisci are attached to the tibial bones. The open anterior and the posterior ends of the menisci are called as the anterior and posterior horns, which is firmly attached to the tibia below. The medial meniscus has a greater ligamentous and capsular attached restraints, limiting the translation to greater extent than the okay. So the medially, all the ligaments and the capsules are there. So it gives a major restraint to the as compared to the lateral meniscus. So the lack of mobility of the medial meniscus may contribute to the greater incidence of the injury. Okay, so all the medial meniscus is little bit less also, which is C-shaped, as I already told you, and the lateral meniscus is large, almost covers 3/4 of the area. So the more stability is at the lateral side. So more of the compression forces or loads are on the medial meniscus. Anteriorly, the menisci are connected to each other by the transverse ligament. Both menisci are attached directly or indirectly to the patella by the patellomeniscal ligament. Fine. So, common attachments of the medial and lateral: intercondylar tubercles of the tibia, tibial condyle by coronary ligament patella via patellomeniscal, and the patellofemoral ligament, transverse ligament between two menisci, anterior cruciate ligaments. Okay, unique attachment of the medial menisci, medial collateral ligament and the semitendinous muscle, and while on the lateral sides, the anterior and posterior meniscofemoral ligament, posterior cruciate ligament, and the popliteus muscle. The capsular thickening referred to as the deep portion is the medial collateral ligament, which restricts the motion of the medial meniscus. The anterior and the posterior horns of the medial meniscus are attached to the anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament. The capsular connections, the semimembranosus muscle, which is attached to the medial meniscus, and on the lateral sides, the tendon of the popliteus muscle attached to the lateral meniscus. Okay. Now we come to what is the role of the menisci. As I already told you, how it helps in the increasing the joint congruency, weight bearing, and it increases the it reduces the friction between the two joints. If we remove the menisci, it why in operative cases menisci has been preserved. Menisci are preserved because if there is a removal of the menisci, it nearly doubles the stress on the femur and multiplies the forces almost 6 to 7 times on the tibial plateau. So the increase in the joint stress, which will lead to early degenerative changes within the tibiofemoral joint. So for this reason, for this main reason, the meniscectomies are performed are rarely performed. If it is to be preserved, the most importantly, it is preserved for doesn't harm the joint. Okay, so it is supplied by the meniscal nutrition and the innervation. I would like to tell you now. It is the menisci bodies are innervated by the free nerve endings, the nociceptors. There are different mechanoreceptors, the Golgi bodies, Ruffini's corpuscles, and the Pacinius corpuscles, which have give sense to if there are little bit injury in the menisci, which give pain sensation also. Okay, after the menisci tear, if there is any, this helps in giving the pain sensation also. The central portion of the menisci, that is avascular, while the peripheral portion is vascularized. So menisci is able to repair or inflammation or remodeling. It occurs mostly in the peripheral area. The central portion is generally avascularized. Okay, so young children whose menisci have ample of blood supply have low incidence of injury. In adults, only the peripheral vascular region is capable of inflammation, repair, and remodeling following a tearing injury. Menisci are well innervated with the free nerve endings and mechanoreceptors, Ruffini's corpuscles, Pacinic corpuscles, and the Golgi tendon organs. Now we come to the tibiofemoral alignment and the weight-bearing force. The anatomic and the longitudinal axis. Femur, oblique and directed inferiorly and medially, and the tibia is directed vertically. So the tibiofemoral longitudinal axis forms an angle medially at the knee joint, which is about 185 to 190 degree. That is 5 degree to 10 degree, creating a physiological valgus at knee. Okay, in bilateral stance movements, there is equal distribution on the medial and lateral condyle. But when there is a unilateral stance, you can see from where it starts. Okay, it goes to the talus. If you make a line. So if there is a deviation in the normal force distribution, if the TF angle, the angle which is formed within the tibia and the femora medially, if it increases to about 190 degree, there occurs a genu valgus, which compresses the lateral condyle. Are you able to imagine if there is a angle, if it is increased by 190 degree, so genu valgum, the knees gets locked. Okay, so there is more of the pressure on the medial side. Compression will be more on the lateral side. Okay, and if the tibiofemoral angle is less than 180 degree, so genu varum occurs. There is a compression on the medial epicondyle. compressive forces in the dynamic knee joint is 2 to 3 times of the body weight in normal gait, 5 to 6 times body weight in activities like running, stair climbing, etc. Okay, in this you can see how the genu valgum, if it is increased, so there is more of the pressure on the lateral side and stretching on the medial side. Okay, the figure A shows that if there is a genu valgum, more angle between the tibia and the femur, there is a lot of compression on the lateral condyles and more of the, you can say that there is a more of the stretching force on the medial condyle. Whereas in the B, you can see if the medial angle is reduced, so there is more compression on the medial condyle and less of the stretching force on the lateral side. Okay, you can see more of good in the X-rays when you. So the knee joint capsule enclose the tibiofemoral and the patellofemoral, which is large, lax, full knee joint capsule. It covers the tibiofemoral and the patellofemoral joint. The outer portion, which is firmly attached to the inferior aspect of the femur and the superior portion of the tibia. The posterior attachment is proximally to the posterior margins of the femoral condyles and the intercondylar notch, distally to the posterior tibial condyle. The anterior attachment superiorly patella and the tendon of the quadriceps muscles, and inferiorly patellar tendon complete the anterior portion of the joint capsule. The anterior, anteromedial and the anterolateral portions of the capsule are separately identified as the medial and the lateral patellar reticulum, or together as called as the extensor reticulum. The joint capsule is reinforced medially, laterally, and posteriorly by the capsular ligaments. The external reticulum, there are two layers, the deep layer and the superficial layer. The deep layer, which connects the capsule anteriorly to the menisci and tibia by the coronary ligament, and the superficial layer, which is mixed with the vastus medialis and the lateralis muscle, and distally continue to the posterior femoral condyle. The synovial lining, which covers the whole of the joint, which is very important, which gives nutrition also. The synovium adheres to of the fibrous capsule, is surpassed by its synovial lining, except the synovium adheres to the anterior aspect and side to the ACL and PCL. Embryologically, the synovial lining of the knee joint capsule is divided by septa into 3 compartments, separate compartments. The superior patellofemoral compartment and 2 separate medial and lateral tibiofemoral compartments. So what are the ligaments of the knee joint? Let me explain you a little bit about synovial lining also. As I already told you how the synovial lining is important, it gives lubrication also and provides nutrition to the avascular structures such as meniscus, which is, I told you that in the middle it is not getting the supply, the peripherally it is getting the supply. So the synovial lining of the joint capsule is very complex and it's more extensive. Posteriorly, the synovial breaks away from the inner surface of the fibrous joint capsule and invaginates anteriorly between the femoral condyles. So both the ACL and PCL are contained within the fibrous capsule. Okay. So there forms a, there's not so much of time. So there is a patellar plica also. If the synovial membrane is unable to fully resorb, which results in the persistent fold in the specific region, these folds are called as the patellar plicae. If that plica gets irritated or inflamed, which leads to pain, effusion, and changes in the joint structure and function, that causes a plica syndrome. Now we come to the ligaments of the knee joint. So there, as it is a very complex joint, so there are many ligaments which improves the stability and function of the joints, which gives hardcore stability and mobility to the knee joint. So there are collateral ligaments, medial First, we start with the medial collateral ligament. Attachment origin to the medial aspect of the medial femoral condyle and insertion to the proximal tibia. There are deep layers also and the superficial layers also in the attachments. And it functions, resist valgus stress force. It checks the lateral rotation of the tibia. It also restrains the anterior displacement of the tibia when the ACL is absent. Lateral collateral ligament starts from the lateral femoral condyle and attaches posterior to the head of the fibula. It resists the varus stresses. According to the position, you can understand how it functions. Okay, so it helps in the resistance of the varus stress. It combined with lateral rotation with posterior displacement of the tibia in conjunction with the tendon of the popliteus muscle. So it also checks the lateral rotation. Then there comes the cruciate ligament. The cruciate ligaments are the anterior collateral ligament and the anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament. The anterior cruciate ligament starts from the anterior surface of the tibia in the intercondylar area, just medial to the medial meniscus. Okay, so it starts from the anterior surface of the tibia, okay, and it goes superiorly, laterally, and runs in the and attaches to the lateral condyle of the femur. So the direction is in the oblique way. Okay. And there are two bands, anterior medial band and the posterior lateral band. These all things you have to imagine. When you imagine, you will be able to understand how the positions of the ligaments are. Okay. So two bands, anterior medial band and the posterior lateral band. So what are the functions of the ACL? It primarily checks the femur from being displaced posteriorly on the tibia. Okay. Conversely, the tibia from being displaced, so it covers both it doesn't allow the femur to go forward or backward also, and the tibia doesn't allow to go anteriorly also. It tightens during extension, preventing excessive hyperextension of the knee joint. ACL carried 87% of the load when anterior translatory force was applied to tibia with extended knee. Checks tibial medial rotation by twisting around PCL. ACL injury is common when knee is flexed and tibia is rotated in either direction. Okay, so most commonly the ACL gets injured when the knee is in the flexed position. The posterior cruciate ligament, it starts from the posterior tibia in the intercondylar area and runs superior and anterior in the direction of the medial side of the ACL and attaches to the anterior femur on the medial condyle of the femur. It also has two bands, the anterior medial band and the posterior lateral band. What are the functions? Checks femur from being displaced anteriorly on the tibia or the tibia from being displaced posteriorly on the femur. It tightens during flexion and is less injured much frequently than the ACL. So the ACL are the most common injured, but the PCL are not that much injured. PCL carry about 93% of the load when posterior translatory force was applied to the tibia with extended knee. PCL play an important role in both restraining and producing rotations of the tibia. Okay, so in short, I can tell you what is ACL runs from the anterior tibia to the posterior femur. PCL runs from the posterior tibia to the anterior femur. Other ligaments are the posterior capsular ligament, oblique popliteal ligament, posterior oblique ligament, arcuate ligament. It consists of lateral branch and the medial branch. The oblique popliteal ligament origins from the central part of the posterior aspect of the joint capsule. Its insertion into the posterior medial tibial condyle. Functions: reinforces posterior medial knee joint capsule obliquely on the lateral to medial diagonal from posterior proximal to distal. The posterior oblique ligament origins from the proximal origin of the MCL and adductor tubercles and inserts into the posterior medial tibia. Functions: the posterior medial knee joint capsule obliquely on the medial to lateral diagonal from proximal to distal. Arcuate ligament from posterior aspect of the head of the fibula attaches. The proximal attachment is to the tendon of the popliteus muscle and the posterior capsule. The medial branch, same posterior aspect of the head of the fibula, attaches to the oblique popliteal ligament on the medial side of the joint. Other one is the meniscofemoral ligament. Okay, it originates from the posterior horn of the lateral meniscus, inserts into the medial femoral condyle. It's called as the ligament of Humphrey, anterior MFL, and the ligament of Wisber, posterior MFL. It functions as the PCL in restoring posterior tibial translation. So there are a lot of bursa which surrounded the knee joint, which helps in prevention of injury. The most three important bursa are the suprapatellar bursa, subpopliteal bursa, and the gastrocnemius bursa, which reduces the friction between the patellar ligament and the tibial tuberosity. Other bursas are the prepatellar bursa, subcutaneous bursa, and the deep infrapatellar bursa. The